The readings will now be given by Craig.
The Bible, Nehemiah. The words of Nehemiah the son of Hakaliah. And it came to pass in the month Shishlu, in the 20th year, as I was in Shushan, the palace, that Hananiah, one of my brethren, came, he and certain men of Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews that had escaped, which were left of the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said unto me, the remnant that are left of the captivity there in the province are in great affliction and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem also is broken down, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. And it came to pass, when I heard these words, that I sat down and wept, and mourned certain days, and fasted, and prayed before the God of heaven. O Lord, I beseech thee, let now thine ear be attentive to the prayer of thy servant, and to the prayer of thy servants, who desire to fear thy name and prosper. I pray thee, thy servant, this day, and grant him mercy in the sight of this man. For I was the king's cupbearer. And I said unto the king, if it please the king, and thy servant have found favor in thy sight, that thou wouldest send me unto Judah, unto the city of my father's sepulchres, that I may build it. And the king said unto me, the queen also sitting by him, for how long shall thy journey be, and when wilt thou return? So it pleased the king to send me, and I set him a time. But when Sanballat the Horonite, and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arabian heard it, they laughed us to scorn, and despised us, and said, what is this thing that ye do? Will ye rebel against the king? Then I answered them, and said unto them, the God of heaven, he will prosper us. Therefore we, his servants, will arise and build. But ye have no portion, nor right, nor memorial in Jerusalem. Now it came to pass that Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arabian and the rest of our enemies heard that I had builded the wall, and that there was no breach left therein, though at the time I had not set up the doors upon the gates. That Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, come, let us meet together in one of the villages in the plain of Ono. But they thought to do me mischief. And I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and come down to you? So the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month Elul, in 52 days. And it came to pass that when all our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathen that were about us saw these things, they were much cast down in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was wrought of our God. Luke. And Jesus, being full of the Holy Ghost, returned from Jordan, and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, being 40 days tempted of the devil. And in those days he did eat nothing. And when they were ended, he afterward hungered. And Jesus returned in the power of the Spirit into Galilee, and there went out a fame of him through all the region round about. And he taught in their synagogues, being glorified of all. I'll now read from Science and Health and Miscellaneous Writings by Mary Baker Eddy. First article is Put Up Thy Sword. While Jesus' life was full of love and a demonstration of love, it appeared hate to the carnal mind, or mortal thought, of his time. He said, "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance with his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household." This action of Jesus was stimulated by the same love that closed to the senses that wondrous life, and that summed up its demonstration in the command, "Put up thy sword." The very conflict his thought brought, in accomplishing its purpose of love, meant all the way through, "Put up thy sword." But the sword must have been drawn before it could be returned into the scabbard. My students need to search the Scriptures and Science and Health of Key to the Scriptures to understand the personal Jesus' labor in the flesh for their salvation. They need to do this even to understand my works, their motives, aims, and tendency. The attitude of mortal mind in being healed morally is the same as its attitude physically. The Christian Scientist cannot heal the sick and take error along with truth, either in the recognition or the approbation of it. This would prevent the possibility of destroying the tares. They must be separated from the wheat before they can be burned. And Jesus foretold the harvest hour and the final destruction of error through this very process, the sifting and the fire. The tendency of mortal mind is to go from one extreme to another. Truth comes into the immediate space saying, "I wound to heal. I punish to reform. I do it all in love. My peace I leave with you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Arise, let us go hence. Let us depart from the material sense of God's ways and means, and gain a spiritual understanding of them. But let us not seek to climb up some other way, as we shall do if we take the end for the beginning or start from wrong motives. Christian Science demands order and truth. To abide by these, we must first understand the principle and object of our work, and be clear that it is love, peace, and goodwill toward men. Then we shall demonstrate the principle in the way of his appointment, and not according to the infantile conception of our way, as when a child in sleep walks on the summit of the roof of the house because he is a somnambulist and thinks he is where he is not, and would fall immediately if he knew where he was and what he was doing. My students are at the beginning of their demonstration. They have a long warfare with error in themselves and in others to finish, and they must, at this stage, use the sword of Spirit. They cannot, in the beginning, take the attitude nor adopt the words that Jesus used at the end of his demonstration. If you would follow in his footsteps, you must not try to gather the harvest while the corn is in the blade, nor yet when it is in the ear. A wise spiritual discernment must be used in your application of his words and inference from his acts to guide your own state of combat with error. There remaineth, it is true, a Sabbath rest for the people of God, but we must first have done our work and entered into our own rest, as the scriptures give example. I'll now read from Science and Health, Key to Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Where were the 70 whom Jesus sent forth? Were all conspirators save 11? Had they forgotten the great exponent of God? Had they so soon lost sight of his mighty works, his toils, privations, sacrifices, his divine patience, sublime courage, and unrequited affection? His consummate example was for the salvation of us all, but only through doing the works which he did and taught others to do.